In this video, we're going to go over feeding your dog. Now, feeding your dog is pretty easy. Some dogs do become growly when they eat their food, and some dogs do actually have a resource guarding for their food. And this exercise is going to show you a nice way to get your dog comfortable with you handling them while they're eating. Now, or if you're encountering another dog that you don't know, when they're eating, don't pet them. A lot of people I see put the food down, then they pet the dog and they get bit. So this probably because the dog didn't do this particular exercise. Now, a couple little tips about feeding. If you have a bigger dog, especially if it's like a Great Dane, you want an elevated feeder. And if you have noticed that your puppy is eating and drooling, dropping food around, they don't really have lips. So they flip their tongue backwards when they scoop water in their mouth. So if their head is oriented straight down, a lot of that water is going to fall out. So if you get an elevated one, they're scooping it this way, and the reservoir of their mouth will catch a lot of that water. Now, some dogs will also pick up bowls and run around with them. If that's the case, you can get a glass bowl like this. I like using porcelain, but either one of those will work. When you are eating, if you have multiple dogs and they're eating, I usually have my dogs eat one at a time. That's a wonderful way for us to have them practice a little bit of self-control and also respect you as an authority figure because you're the one controlling the food. Now, dogs eat and spend 90% of their time in the wild looking for food. It is the primal drive of their existence. So when we feed them, we put them in all the food in this bowl, their dog's like, okay, what do I do with the other 89% of my time? So this is why we like having dogs, puppies initially, eating out of the treat dispensing toys because they actually have to work for that food a little bit, as Luke is doing. And so if your puppy does this, again, you want to get a heavier bowl. This is how good, well-trained he is. I told him I wanted to do this on camera, but I don't know if he'd actually do it. So basically what we want to do is make sure that you create a scenario where your puppy feels comfortable. Now, if your puppy is eating and somebody comes by, a lot of people think that, oh, automatically my dog is food aggressive. A growl is not aggression. A growl is the antithesis of aggression. If your dog growls, it's saying, I'm uncomfortable with something and I'm trying to communicate to everybody I'm uncomfortable. I don't want to bite. And we've had several people in our puppy class punish their dogs for growling. And the dog just says, fine, I won't growl. I'll just go straight to a bite without any warning. And 2 of those people actually rehomed the dog because they had little kids that were getting bit by their dog. So if you do have little kids, they should not be mulling around with the dog while it's eating. Now, this exercise will help them feel comfortable with it, but your puppy, remember, and your adult dogs count on you to keep it safe. So you need to make sure that you have rules and structure so your puppy doesn't feel the need to protect itself. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to dump this in, and when I do, he's probably going to eat it pretty quickly. So I want to kind of set all this up ahead of time. Also, a lot of people, it's hard to overfeed a puppy, but adult dogs do, there's an obese problem with dogs. And more food is not necessarily more love. And so read and figure out, talk to your vet, find out how much your puppy should be fed. Make sure you're feeding it at least twice a day. If your dog only gets fed once a day, I find that creates lower blood sugar at times from frustration and aggression, just like us, we only eat once a day. Well, you're gonna be hungry a lot of the rest of the day. So I feed my dogs breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I have a home office and I have the ability to do that. Luca's making fun of messing with the other camera, so that's going to be some interesting footage I'll have to edit later. All right, so when I'm doing this, I'm going to show you from here. When he's eating, I'm going to start, and I'm going to be doing it on this side so that this camera can see it. But I'm going to start off by just touching him here. Just a little bit of a touch while he's eating. Now, if your dog stops eating and freezes, that's a communication. I'm uncomfortable. Now, the closer you get to their mouth, the more difficult it's going to be. This might take you a little bit of time. You might have to practice over the course of a week or 2. But if you get this done right, you'll eventually be able to go grab your dog's bowl, put your hand in the bowl, and it's comfortable. Now, if your dog is growling when you're approaching it, one of the things we do for resource guarding is we let him eat, and then basically we get a long-handled spoon with some canned dog food, which just has more water. Dogs really like it. So when the dog's eating, I approach, and this is at the culmination. Once I've already gotten to the point where I can touch the dog here while he's eating, he's comfortable. Then I basically come over and plop some food in there. Now, if he's growling, like I said, you want to go back to touching him as far away from his mouth as possible, and gradually you're going to pet in circles or whatever your dog likes and get closer and closer. Now, I'm just showing you this right now in one setting. You're not going to do this in one setting. You might have a whole meal where you're just touching him, scratching his butt right here. Next meal, you might scratch his butt here. Next meal here, and so on and so forth. And again, if I go from here to here and he starts growling, back up here and keep practicing here for a meal or 2, and then move just a little bit. The idea is to go very, very progressive. So progressively, the dog doesn't notice that now you've moved from my butt to now you're touching me underneath my chin while I'm actually eating food. All right, Luca, I know you're hungry. What is Luca's word to eat?
Grab, but he is hesitant to move.
Okay, so in another video we talked about passive training. Passive training is basically waiting for the dog to do something on its own and just assigning a command word. So when I feed my dogs, I have 4 dogs. Each dog has its own unique command word. And if you have multiple dogs at home, I would recommend this. I say grub, chow, feast, and lasagna. Lasagna? You want some lasagna? You and Garfield, huh? Well, coming up with these funny command words, especially if you have kids, can really pay off. So come up with a unique word. A lot of people say their favorite dish or the name of their favorite restaurant. All right, Luca, you ready? Up.
He sits and waits before he's
Luca,
going to eat.
come here. Sit. Sit. Wait. Now, if your dog gets up and goes for the food, then you just pull your arm back, and you might have to go back and forth like this. So having your dog wait with food in the bowl and nothing between them and the bowl is a great, wonderful way to develop a little bit more self-control. So and now I would like to wait for him to look at me. Luca, sit, 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 sit. We'll use the higher value treat to do this. Luca, sit. Remember, the higher you are, the more rank or status you have. Luca. Grub, or chow. Grub. Luca. Grub. So when he takes his first bite, and only the first bite, you're going to say the word grub. And you're going to do that for about 2 to 3 months. I have 4 dogs, and every dog took a little bit longer or shorter to learn this, but eventually they all learn it because if he's with 3 other dogs, and he actually lives with 2 other dogs now, so if the other dogs' food words are pizza and lasagna, well, when he hears the word pizza, there's no food in his mouth. But here's the word grub, there is food in his mouth. So to him, the context means that means I get permission to eat. All right, so now I'm going to move him over here a little bit more so we have better camera presence. There we go, Luca. Okay, he's going to do it this way. So again, I'm going to start here. There you go. And eventually, as you're doing it, you're going to be able to move faster and faster. Now, his guardian is one of our puppy class instructors, Taylor, and she's done a lot of great work with him. So you can see I can get all the way here, and he's not having any movement or hesitation. And I'm all the way down here. Luca. Now that's a little sidebar. I do that occasionally. You should only start moving the food away once you can get to the point where he can touch and pet your dog under its chin without any hesitation. So you can see for him, his body language is comfortable. What you're gonna look for if the dog's uncomfortable is they're gonna get stiff and they're gonna stop eating or they're gonna freeze. And so if you see any of those things, that's an indication that you need to go a little bit further away and just getting your puppy comfortable doing this. Now, if you do touching him while you're eating, eventually you can kind of put your hand in his bowl like this, but again, this is at the end of the exercise when you can pet under here without any hesitation or grumbling or at all. Now, if you do have little kids, depending on the age of the kid, this can not work for some kids. So I would maybe have my child here and have my child take its hand and helping the child do this so the puppy is comfortable with the child here. But if your children are likely to go and grab and not listen to you and go invade the dog's space, I would not do this. I would wait for your children to get a little bit older and just get your puppy comfortable. The most important thing is that it's a couple people in the house who are adults can pet him and touch him, and he feels comfortable. And you saw with Luca, I can take his food away. He doesn't have any aggression. That's what we're looking for. This should take you about a week to 2 weeks. And if you're feeding your dog out of the treat dispensing toys, just hold off on this. Wait until you get to the point where you're feeding out of a bowl, and then start touching him here. And if the petting stopped and the dog just doesn't growl, but he stops, you might just like touch here. And again, go at your puppy's pace. Go as slow as you need to, but eventually get to the point where you can pet him wherever he wants, and he doesn't care as long as he's getting to eat his food. Well, this is Luca. I would say this is Luca's butt, and this is how you can add a little, or help your dog feel comfortable being handled and touched while they're eating food to make sure that they don't feel the need to protect their food.